welcome back to the last segment of the Commissioner's Corner for February. I'm hoping to get through this quickly. Dan is ill, and I'm afraid he's going to get me sick by sitting this close to him. I hope not too. So we're going to start off with, and I think I have the name right, the Colorado Community Symposium, which took place this past 2 weeks ago, I guess. End of January, first part of February in Denver. So Karin, you want to talk about what that was and what maybe the first action step for the county is coming out of it?
Sure, there was a lot of interesting workshops and a lot of experts at this symposium in Aurora. And so we were hoping the experts would just say, here, this is what you do. This is how you solve the problem of climate change. Because there are some dramatic and frightening futures that we're looking at, including losing a lot of our beautiful snow and our economy that revolves around snow. So there are lots of directions that we are hoping we're going to go to reduce greenhouse emissions. The obvious one is looking at renewable energy. So one of our first steps is passing a resolution that supports 100% renewable. How we get there exactly, they didn't tell us, darn it. But we know that we're going to work in collaboration with Xcel to make that happen. And being one of those members stating that we want to go toward 100% renewable helps all the communities trying to make that happen.
Yeah, there are a lot of local communities in Colorado that are all very interested in this topic, and they were well represented at the symposium, thanks to the governor for pulling it together. I think one of the things that I found most interesting was just everyone talking about, you know, how quickly will transportation electrify? And what do we need to be thinking about in terms of that kind of infrastructure? How quickly will it happen? You know, we're very interested in that in terms of the Summit Stage system that we run. And so a lot more to come, but we're there, we're heavily engaged, thanks to High Country Conservation Center and the towns of Frisco, town of Breckenridge. There was good representation from Summit County, and we're well on our way.
Yeah, and I thought I attended one of the breakout groups on electrification of our, transportation systems, and it was truly amazing to hear from the experts on, yeah, this makes sense for our backyard, for what we see here, for the environment, but this also makes great economic sense, where the new technology with the battery life is phenomenal, where a stereotypical diesel bus like what we have right now in our fleet, that would have, according to federal guidelines, about a 12-year shelf life. They're saying some of these electrical buses have like 15 to 17 year, and the price has gone dramatically down, where it used to be close to $1 million a bus. Now it's almost on par with a diesel bus. So, whether it's the economics or just great for our environment or future generations, I know we have a commitment, all four of us, to explore what we can do locally to really set the bar high on renewables and really putting the environment way up there for a priority.
One of the really neat, I have to mention this because I just think it's the coolest thing. So if you've got a new iPhone 10, or iPhone 8, you can, instead of having to plug it into a charger, you can set it on a little charging disc and it will charge by inductive charging. So they're now working on, or have available, inductive chargers for vehicles. And so as we're working on the new Frisco Transfer Center, we're talking about how can we future-proof that site. And one of the things that we're talking about is putting in inductive charging within the pavement of where the buses will be sitting and for some number of minutes at a time. And all they have to do is pull over top of this charging system. They don't have to plug in, and it just will recharge the battery of the bus, which I think is just the coolest thing. So we're very interested. The technology is advancing at such a rapid rate that it just makes a whole lot of sense. And that is one of the big areas within Summit County, fleets, buses, etc., where we really do have a significant opportunity to make changes, because a lot of us have made changes within our facilities. We've added some solar power in different facilities. We've tightened up our buildings. We've improved our HVAC systems. And so really fleets are one of the big areas where we can make significant improvements in the community. So, great. All right, move on to the legislative session. Carney, you want to talk a little bit about water stuff?
Well, I was just going to try to describe the many organizations that we're members of to be able to survive through the legislative session, because there are hundreds of bills that are introduced during the session, and it's really hard to keep track of everything. So many of these bills do directly impact counties and our authority, our ability to get grants for charging stations or other things. It's just wide-ranging. So we belong to a number of organizations that help us through this. And a couple
We're joiners.
Yes, we like to collaborate. And a couple of them that I was with last week is water organizations. So the Colorado River Conservation, the River District, Colorado River District. We look at bills that will affect our water, particularly West Slope water. And another group that is just a little smaller but with a lot of the same interest is QQ, Water Quality and Quantity Committee of the Northwest COG, Northwest Colorado Council of Governments. And so both of those entities look at all the water bills. The QQ group really looks at headwaters, and we have some slightly different nuances of what we are concerned about relative to the whole river district. That's the whole Colorado Basin. Both groups, though, are really interested in making sure that all the water that does go to the east gets used to extinction. It's supposed to be. So there are 5 different bills now that are allowing the use of reclaimed water. So, and because of the way the laws are written, it has to be a different bill for each use. Industrial hemp has its own bill, medical marijuana has its own bill, edible crops has its own bill, toilet flushing has its own bill. But this is all ways to use water to extinction, to use water instead of our water we want to have used to extinction when it goes to the other side. There are a number of bills that allow for flexibility of water rights so that your agricultural water, which is most of the water in Colorado used for ag use, can also be used for other purposes without you losing your water right. So there have been a number of pilot programs, and we continue to support those so that your agricultural water could be used for in-stream use, keeping water in the river, or for municipal use without you losing your agricultural water right. So that's just a couple of the groups that we are looking at in terms of legislation. There are many more, like CCI, CCAT, many other groups that we participate with to try to get through the legislative session without too much damage.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a bunch of groups that help advance our concerns, and that we work with in advancing common concerns as well. So it's a good use of our resources, because it would be difficult for, if impossible for any of us to spend as much time and be as involved with relationships with legislators across the state to be able to get our message across clearly. So.
Sure.
All right. Anything else about legislation or the session? All right. We'll call it a day. Thanks very much for joining us for the February edition, and we'll probably be back in March.